Go. All right, we are recording. So let me make sure I make like the most fabulous face.
Because you're always on freeze looking crazy.
I know. I'm always like,
I'll edit it nice this time.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome everybody. You guys are like a couple minutes early. So we typically give everybody about 5 minutes just to get in and get ready. Let's see. Hi, Kimberly. Okay. So we will not call you Dave. Thank you, Kimberly. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes and then we'll wait for Mama Bear to chime in and we'll get going.
Yeah.
And while you guys are waiting, if you have any questions that you want to ask Jamie, you can go ahead and put them in the instant messenger and then I'll get them to her if you hadn't emailed them to me. They can be on anything, like anything you want to ask her. You know, it's kind of a free-for-all.
All right, here come a bunch more people.
I probably should like move. So it's golden hour here in Arizona. So the sun is setting. And it's hair wash day from Natasha.
I would not have
there
guessed.
she is. What?
That I wouldn't have guessed.
Oh, I know, hair wash day. Yeah.
Mine was last night.
Was it? It's such an ordeal.
It is.
But it's worth it.
Yes, curly hair is a lot of work to when you wash it, but it lasts a long time. So that's
Yes.
Yeah. All right, people are still jumping in, so I'm hang tired a little bit. Oh, gosh, a good turnout.
I know. So maybe like the date of reminder was really good.
I think so.
Yeah. Well, if anybody is like me, I have a very short-term like tunnel vision. So
Yeah.
if it's outside of 24 hours.
Speaking of that, where were you yesterday?
I know. I have been driving to California every weekend and I just hit a wall. I'm exhausted.
We had so much fun.
I know. I know. I was a little envious. And you guys had beautiful weather, like perfect weather.
It was amazing. Yeah, it was perfect. We did our hike, our team hike yesterday. If you guys didn't know about it, a lot of people are like, we didn't know. I'm like, how'd you guys not know? We sit out.
I know. Are we going to do another one before it gets hot?
I think they want to do like kayaking or something next or something. They were talking about doing something different. I don't know if we're going to do a hike again or something else.
That'd be fun. Ooh, we're getting a really good.
I know. I'm so excited. This is awesome.
It's because Mama Bear's on here, so we might have to like
have me come back.
Yes.
We'll see how they like it by the time it's done. Bring her back. That was boring.
Oh, it's Stacy. Hi, Stacy. Stacy, Hallie. Hi, girls.
Hey.
My little
I got Papa Bear's joining me, so he'll keep things entertaining.
Always. I see him back there.
Okay.
I know this is totally off subject, but for anybody that's ordering like the new merch, I got our new red outfit in and the sports bra. I hands down love. It's my favorite sports bra. I meant to tell you that, Jamie. It fits so well. Like the coverage of it fits really, really nice. I got lots of compliments in the gym.
Yeah, I love how the shorts fit too. They're like the perfect length and the waistband is really nice. I really was happy with how those came out too.
Yeah, they're not too tight.
All right, you tell me when you want me to start.
Doorbell's ringing a few more times, but we're gonna give it like 1 more minute, see who else pops in, and then we'll go. And then I'll just let people in as we go.
As we go. All right. Yeah. Hi, Papa Bear.
Sorry, I muted you.
It's okay. She said she muted me. So hi, kids.
Hello.
This is a platinum group. This ain't kids.
My kids to me.
Grown up.
Attitude.
This is the grown-up crew.
I don't want to grow up. Do you want to grow up?
No.
Yeah.
Never.
All right, Tosh, let's go for
Are we
it.
good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We are super excited to have all of you guys here. This Sunday, we have our guest speaker, Mama Bear, Jamie. She has joined us, and we're super excited to have her because she is always traveling. So this is a very rare occurrence to have her sitting at home to join us. Jamie is our founder. She is, as we say, Mama Bear. She takes care and loves on all of us. She is a 2-time Olympian, IFBB figure pro. So today she is going to go and talk more about optimizing your workouts. And then after she's done, we have some time for Q&A. And I know some of you have already sent in questions, so I got those to her. And if you have questions, like as we're going along, just go ahead and put them in the chat, and we'll pick those up after we're done. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Mama Bear.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me today. And I actually have Papa Bear here with me, and he's going to chime in, and we're just going to do this together. This is a little bit different topic than what I typically like to present on. And I know some of you guys have seen me present a different, whether it's Cuties Conquering the Stage or some of our other events. And I love to talk about mindset and motivation. And that's really what I love. And at the same time, this is such a practical and important topic. And I do think it's really important. I thought about this a little bit, and I messaged with Natasha. I'm like, maybe I want to change my topic. And I'm like, no, I really need to talk about this because this is something that I see coming up pretty frequently recently. And I see kind of two sides of the same coin coming up. So either people who are going in the gym and aren't really challenging themselves enough. I don't like that one. I don't like this one. Sorry, guys. That aren't challenging themselves enough and finding out kind of where that sweet spot is that they can make sure that they're, really exhausting the muscle and getting the growth. But even more so the other side of the coin in our particular world, where people are feeling like they need to do so much more, too much, and go overboard. So I kind of wanted to address progressive overload. What does that mean? What should we be shooting for when we go in the gym? What should that look like? And make sure that we want to be challenging ourselves and making sure that growth is occurring. And at the same time, we don't want to cause injuries. We don't want to be hurting ourselves. We don't want to be not working the muscle that we're intending on working because our form is going out of whack because we're lifting too heavy, things like that. So I'm just going to kind of break things down from a really kind of, he's so funny. You're supposed to be helping me present, not taking pictures.
I'm supposed to be taking pictures.
Sorry.
The world needs to know about the Platinum Group.
I want to just kind of break things down from a really practical standpoint. And then I want you guys to chime in with questions because I know a lot of people don't have some confusion around this area and what they need to be doing. So kind of going back to progressive overload, what does that mean? So we're either increasing weight, frequency, or reps over time. So what are the benefits? We all know we want to avoid hitting a plateau, which is going to happen if I go in and I do the exact same weight every time I go into the gym for the exact same amount of reps. There's going to become a point where that muscle is adapted to that weight, to that number of reps, to the pace at which I'm working, things like that. If I'm doing things exactly the same way every single time, I'm going to adapt. My strength is going to meet that, and it's just going to I'm going to plateau. I'm not going to see, the benefits. So, making sure that we're continuing to challenge ourselves in new and different ways is really important to keep growth going. And so we're going to talk about what those ways are and what that looks like. But what are the drawbacks? And this is one of the things that I'm seeing a lot is that people think that they need to hit a PR every single time they go in the gym on the same exercise every single time they do the exercise. I mean, that's physically impossible. I mean, if I start, and I especially see this when you're working a small muscle, if I'm working my front delt, right? And say I start doing front raises and I'm doing them with 5 pounds, then what am I going to do next time? 6, 7, 8, 10, 15, 25 pounds? I don't think so. At that point, what am I going to be using? I'm not using my front delt anymore. I'm using probably my traps, maybe a little bit of my lats. I'm starting to use some momentum. You know, I'm not really working the muscle like it's intended to be worked anymore. So for me with that particular exercise, I'm rarely going over 10 pounds. And I'm strong. So I think it's really important. But we're going to talk about other ways to increase intensity other than just weight by itself. But this is the thing I see people getting in trouble with. So it has to be gradual. We're not going to be increasing every single time we go into the gym on every single move that we're doing.
One thing on number of reps too, that, you know, in the field that you guys are all participating in, everybody focuses on numbers. What's my weight? What are my macros? Are all numbers driven. And when you go to the gym, it's the same thing. You think about the reps and the number of sets. The most important thing that you do there, and we'll talk about this a little bit more, but really focus. I mean, if you set a rep range of 12 and you're failing at 8, then okay, either drop the weight or accept that rep, okay? But don't get 12 just to get 12, because just like Jamie says, you're going to be using something else to compensate, and you'll cheat. And that cheating can lead to injury, and cheating is not working that muscle group. So make sure that you're listening to your body, that mind muscle connection, which we'll talk about here, you know, during this presentation. But just really don't get so tied to let me rephrase this in a positive way. Focus on your body and less on the rep range. Okay, it's good to set a rep range, but stay out of that and listen to your body and connect with that muscle group that you're training.
Right. So that's good. So the drawbacks are, in best case scenario with the drawback, best case is you're not working the correct muscle. Worst case, you injure yourself. And none of us want that. That's the worst thing, right, honey?
Yes.
You heard me yesterday. So, I mean, you know, it's one of those things where you just know when you're like, oh, I see some people in here I know who are dealing with injuries right now. So you guys know, like, if there's any way that we can avoid that, we all want to make sure we're avoiding that, you know. And hey, sometimes things are unavoidable and they're going to happen, but this is one of the ways that we can do it, is by really paying attention and stopping before we get to that point where we, you know, are losing our form or doing something that could potentially injure us.
Before you train hard, train smart.
Yes.
Smart should be your first order, and then train hard. So
right. And I mean, and again, with that said, there's that other side of the coin. And when we had our Anytime Fitness, you know, in the beginning, when the team was just starting, we had a lot of our athletes that would be working out in there. And many, many times I saw people working well below their potential. So I was kind of known for maybe slipping some extra weight on there. You know, somebody's on the leg press, just la, 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 you know, I'm like, here's another 45, let's go. You know what I mean? So, I mean, obviously, like, there's two sides to that. We do want to make sure we're challenging ourselves. So I just find that with this particular group, sometimes we can lean a little heavier on the overdoing it than the underdoing it, because we're a lot of type A's on this call here. So so what are the 4 ways that we can progressively overload? One is increased resistance, which I talked a little bit about, and I'm going to go into more depth in each one of these. The second one is endurance. The third is tempo and intensity. And actually, we had a question that came in on tempo and intensity. So we'll talk a little bit more than that about that. And then the fourth is you can increase reps. So there's not only one way to do it. So, you know, if you know, we've kind of hit, you know, and again, depending on the muscle, you know, if we've already kind of hit the max in terms of weight, you know, one of the easiest things we can do is increase reps. Whenever I do my workout plans, I typically will give a rep range. And, you know, to be clear, what I mean when I'm giving a rep range, so say it's 12 to 15. If I'm saying 12 to 15 reps, by that 12th rep, I expect that the weight that you're choosing by the 12th rep is really challenging. It's so challenging that you can only get 12 reps. So you're like, okay, let me see if I can get one more. Let me see if I can get one more. And maybe you get to the 15, but it's one of those things where you're like, I got to really push to get these last couple in. So what I tell people is, you know, each time we go into the gym is a new day. And I'm sure you guys have all experienced this. Some days I walk in the gym and I start training and I'm like, holy moly, I am freaking strong today. Like, where did that come from? And other days I go in and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is hard. You know, and it could be, you know, what was the quality of your sleep? You know, how hydrated are you? How mentally taxed are you at this point? You know, all of these things are going to affect our performance in the gym. So every time you go into the gym with that sense of curiosity. Okay, let's see what I can do today. obviously we know kind of our history and what we've been able to do in the past and what we're looking to meet or beat. But at the same time, every time you walk in with that new refreshed, view of how is this workout going to unfold. And then, to start out, first of all, and I did want to talk about warming up because warming up is really important, and it's something I skipped for many years. And as we get older, I think we more and more realize how important warming up is. He always got on me about it. And, I paid a price, shoulder surgery price for not warming up and just jumping right into the working set. So, I will tell you guys right now, if you're not already warming up, first of all, I always like to do 5 minutes of just not intense cardio, but at least get things moving. For me, I like to do the stairs because I don't have to go crazy. My heart rate gets up super easy. 5 minutes, done. I got, I'm warmed up, blood's flowing, it's all good. From there, depending on your body, you may need additional warming up. And that's something, if you've got a past injury or if you've got something that's acting up. For me, I had shoulder surgery about 1.5 years ago. So I'm going to do some internal, external rotation sort of things, either with a band, or if I don't have bands with me, a lot of times I'll just grab like a 5-pound weight and just, do some rotations, just to make sure that that shoulder is nice and warmed up before I start, actually working it. So that's really important. And then from there, you want to do at least a couple of warm-up sets. And for me, that's where I'm really gauging where my strength is for the day. So my first warm-up set's going to be pretty light. I'm probably going to go 20 to 25 reps. And it's just going to be super light. And I'm just moving. I'm just giving that shoulder that opportunity to really kind of feel that motion, feel that weight. Then my next warm-up set, I'm going to get a little closer to where I think my first working set's going to be, a little bit less, but I'm going to kind of gauge where my strength is for the day. And if that set's still super easy and I'm getting 20 to 25, I'm probably going to start my working set a little bit higher than I normally do. Or if it's feeling a little bit heavier that day, maybe I'll start my first working set a little bit less. At that point, if my rep range that I'm aiming for that particular set is 12 to 15 reps, again, I'm looking to not necessarily fail, but get pretty damn close to it, of course, without losing my form in that range. If I get to that 15 and I'm like, you know what, that was not hard enough, keep going. No, there's no law that says if you go over, you're going to be punished. It just wasn't enough weight. Keep going until that muscle's tired. And then you know where you need to adjust for your next set. The ideal is then, you're getting closer to finding that failure point somewhere in that rep range, in between. So
this gets into that concept of instinctive training, of listening to your body. We talked about that a little bit going in, and I'll just paint the picture for you. When Jamie and I used to go to the gym together a while ago before her shoulder surgery, my warm-up was about 30 minutes long, 35 minutes long. It consisted of both stretching, active muscle activation, a lot of foam rolling, or really targeted myofascial release to break up whatever adhesions had formed in the joint that I happened to be working at. I've had a number of shoulder surgeries, so that was very important to me. But I would literally be done with my muscle activation by about the time that Jamie was done with her workout. And that's when I would go in. But what I found was that I had to work a lot less hard at that point because my warm-up routine was very challenging. It was about muscle contraction, muscle activation, myofascial release, really targeted things to get my body ready to work. And then I would work more efficiently. I had to work less hard to get the similar workout than what I would do if I had to come in and do a whole bunch of warm-up sets. So that was just an injury prevention philosophy, I guess is the best way to say. Approach maybe is the better way to say it. So as we talk about that just keep that in mind, that you can challenge yourself in your warm-up. Warm-up doesn't just need to be something that you're just going through the motions. And in fact, if you are just going through the motions, then you're probably taking that into your workout as well.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about the 4 ways of progressively overloading, starting with increasing resistance. One of the things that I wanted to bring up that I think is an important concept. And I know some of the stuff you guys may just be like, oh yeah, we know. And at the same time, I think it's always important to remind ourselves of some of these basic, ideas behind what we're doing. But, reminding people that how do we grow muscle? We micro tears, we break down the muscle in the gym. And then what? Then we have to recover. It's really important. And I think a lot of times, a lot of us, we just want to work a muscle, especially if it's one of those muscles that we know are our weaker areas. So, part of it is listening to your body. And also make sure you let your coach know, like if you are not fully recovered before you're working that muscle again, let them know, because, different people have different levels of conditioning, different levels of intensity in the gym. Some people can work a muscle more frequently and it recovers. So that's just something to bring your awareness to. And then of course we get stronger, but we don't get stronger if we don't allow for the recovery. So it's all an important part of the process. And I like to bring that up because, that kind of falls into that same category of overtraining. And it is not necessary to be sore to make progress. That's another one I hear a lot. And a lot of you guys probably know this already. Like when you first start training, you get sore. Or if you take time off and you come back, oh my God, I took some time off and came back and worked legs. It was right before our San Antonio seminar. And I was like, someone help me. I can't get up, but now I've been super consistent since then. And it takes a lot for me to get even a little bit sore. But that doesn't mean I'm not making progress. Obviously newbie gains are great, but that's not going to go on forever. And as we get more conditioned, we're going to see a little bit less soreness, but it's still, it's still something we want to work towards and embrace, but we don't want to be overly sore like I was in San Antonio, because that was not intended to be. I just thought I could do more than I could. It's really important, good form, which we've kind of hammered that already. But just bringing that up again, that has to be top of the priority list when you're training, because if you're losing your form, you're not working the muscle correctly, and then you're putting yourself in danger of potentially injuring yourself. So that's really important. One of the questions that actually came up, sorry, I don't finish this part, then I'll pass it. He has to get in a word edgewise, the females. Okay. But somebody had asked a question about, it's my lovely Haley, about whether she wasn't feeling on certain exercises that hamstring. I think she was saying that she felt the lying hamstring better than she did, maybe it was the seated one. And I did want to give a suggestion for that. That mind muscle connection is what's really important. So if there's an exercise where you're not feeling the muscle that is intended, my suggestion would be to do the motion without any weight. So just focus on the isometric squeeze. So if I'm going to work my bicep, I've got no weight. I'm just going to squeeze this bicep as hard as I can, and I'm going to resist myself. I can actually, I'm working right now without weight, right? So if somebody tells me I'm doing an exercise and I'm not feeling that muscle, then you're not engaging that muscle. So my suggestion would be isometrically squeeze the muscle first. I do this a lot with glutes. So say you're going to do a lunge, and say it's a stationary lunge, get in position, you got your weight, whether it's here, however you're doing your lunge, squeeze those glutes like you're going to crack a nut between your cheeks, and hold them squeeze them the whole time, all the way down, all the way back up. You're going to work that muscle. So if there's something where you're doing it and you're like, gosh, I'm just not really feeling that in the right area, that's my suggestion on that one, because I know that was one of the questions that had come up. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to comment on the mind muscle connection and the form that you use when you work out. If you're not feeling a body part when you're working it out, it more likely than not is because you are either not doing the correct form or you're not connecting with the muscle. And that connection with the muscle, I was going to say the exact same thing Jamie said, is do it without weight. Do the exercise without weight, and focus when you're at the height of contraction of that exercise. Tighten the muscle at that point, so your mind clicks into, this is the muscle that I'm working here. It's the reason why warming up is so important, and warming up the specific body part, so that you tell, if I'm working my hamstrings, for example, my brain needs to tell my hamstring, we're going to be working here. And so if I've activated that effectively through my warm up and through active contraction, which is what Jamie's talking about, then that neuromuscular pathway between my brain and that muscle is now formed, so that I can feel that on that contraction. Back in the day, and I still do this today, if I finish an exercise, like I finished doing chest, I'll get that extra contraction after I'm done on the exercise, just so I can feel that contraction and pump that blood into it. Same thing with my back, biceps, legs. It works all of that. If you're done with that exercise, contract the muscle just so you can connect that brain to that muscle group, and it will pay dividends over time.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so we wanted to actually talk about a few ways, when we are increasing resistance, how can we continue to increase resistance without injuring or losing form? And we wanted to give you some ideas in that regard. One of my favorite, because a lot of times I'm working out by myself. Well, let me just say this first. If you have a workout partner or trainer, that's great. The biggest thing I will say with that is you want that person to be really paying attention and spotting you. So I would just make sure you're really clear. Hey, I want to go a little bit heavier. I really need you to focus on spotting me, because I too often can, and I'm guilty of this myself because I work out with my daughter sometimes, and we start, even during our set or whatever, and it's really easy to squirrel. You want to make sure that the person's really paying attention and let them know, hey, I'm going to see if I can push a little bit further past the amount of reps. I'd like you to spot me on those last few and just assist me. So that's a really great way. But for a lot of us, and most of the time I'm working out by myself, most of the time what I will do, first of all, I always want to challenge myself. So I might pick up a weight that's more than I typically can do. And I know I might not get to my rep range with that particular weight, but I want to challenge myself that day. I want to see how many can I get. So maybe I increase my weight and I can only get 4 or 5, and I'm shooting for 8 to 10. Drop the weight, just put it down, grab the next one, keep going. And then if you drop it, and, or if you're doing plates, just keep, those drop sets can be killer. And then that way you don't lose your form. You're able to really burn out that muscle completely, and you're able to hit your rep range, and you've gotten to see how far you can get with this new weight. So I'm a huge fan of doing drop sets. You want to talk about rest pauses?
Yeah. Does everybody, I don't know if everybody knows what a rest pause is. Just let me cover it real quick. If you already maybe know this, but so you're doing an exercise and you're doing leg press, and you get to that point where you need to stop. So you just stop, and then you pause for a second. Like you're supposed to do 12 reps. 12 reps is your range, and you get to 5, and you're like, oh man, I'm done. This is really heavy today. And just rack the weight, pause for a second, and it's usually 5 to 10 seconds pause, and then re-engage and count 6, 7, 8, 9. And if you need to pause again, get pause, then 10, 11, 12. And you get your 12 reps that way. And it's just that pause, but you want to keep, don't pause and get off the machine, or don't pause and get out from underneath the weight. Pause by racking it, staying right in your position. You can contract the muscle if you want, and then re-engage with the rest of your repetitions.
And where I would use a rest pause versus a drop set is if you're putting weight and collars and all that stuff on the bar, a drop set's not real reasonable, because you got to go take off the collar and take off the weight. By the time you did all that, you could probably start your next set.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a good, if you're doing squats and you've got everything, loaded on the bar, or deadlifts or whatever it is, a rest pause might be a better option than a drop set in that particular case. Whereas on a machine where you can just change the plates really easily, or put down dumbbells and grab the next one. So that would be another option there. So spotter, rest pause, drop sets.
One other point on the spotter too. What Jamie said was 100% accurate. Before you go and ask somebody to spot you at the gym, just be careful, okay? Not everybody knows how to spot, and it's a technique. And the worst thing to happen is where you get somebody who's spotting you and they don't know what the heck they're doing, and they will ruin your set, or they will endanger you. And either one is really not what you want. So be careful. Not all spotters are created equal. It's better to employ these other techniques if you don't know who's in the gym. And just because you're watching somebody work out and they look strong, or they look like they know what they're doing, they may know what they're doing, but they may not know how to spot. And it's a different thing. So
I would unfortunately even put some trainers in that category. Yeah. Anyway, the other thing we wanted to talk a little bit about is machine choice. So if you are training by yourself and you're going to want to, challenge yourself and push kind of past, a PR, a limit, you may want to say, for example, if you're used to doing free weight squats, maybe go to the Smith machine because the Smith machine becomes a spotter for you, because you can easily rack it if you needed to, or if you got stuck, or you can put the little stoppers, which you can also do on the squat rack too. So if worst case, even if you dropped it, it's not, it's not going to hurt you. So just kind of thinking about what machines you're choosing to do, and then choosing ones that you can, provide yourself as spotter. One of the other things we had talked about too is, doing negatives, and I'm going to let Greg give you an example of that. But, even like if you're squatting and that weight's a bit heavier, you could put a bench where your butt is, and do the negatives. But he was going to give you an example of kind of in powerlifting
So when I was in high school, the technique that I employed when we were trying to get personal records for whatever routine, what I would find is that if my max was 315, and on the day that I went in to exceed that max at 325 or even 320, when I pulled up that weight, that extra 5 or 10 pounds just felt like it was 50 pounds or 100 pounds. And getting my body accustomed to the weight was a real technique to psychologically, again, it's that mind muscle connection, just getting yourself used to it. So if you're going to set if you want to go up and weight and you're concerned about it, unrack it, feel it in a safe way. The one thing I will tell you on the bench thing that we were talking about with the squats, be careful squatting with the bench. If you allow yourself to come down and rest and allow your spine to roll, super dangerous, okay? Because you're basically taking weight and you're compressing your spine. Unracking that weight to get used to it, though, that's a great technique of just getting used to that weight. And are you going to talk about partial reps?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So partial reps is another way to kind of get used to weight. And again, spotter is very helpful with this, but partial rep is just either focusing on, like if I'm doing a bench press, it's just the easiest way for me to illustrate this. I can come down halfway and push up. And stopping midway, by the way, make no mistake, you're still going to contract the muscle and you're still going to get the concentric movement at the top of it, but it helps you get used to just that movement and that weight. And it also is a great way to pump out at the end of an exercise. So if you've hit 12 reps on an exercise and you want to just get that last little pump, you can do partial reps at the end, really effective on machines, just to get that last little bit of blood in there and that last contraction.
One other thing I wanted to bring up too is, and I know some of the people on the call right now will relate to this. I have some people that I don't want to grow certain muscles. I see some heads shaking. So this is also something obviously to think about. We're not trying to PR on a muscle that we're not wanting to grow. So, a lot of times, like for example, I do have some people that, their upper bodies are a little bit ahead of their lower bodies, for example. So maybe I have them doing more metabolic style training where it's really kind of more high reps, keeping the heart rate up. We're not really looking to hit PRs in that particular instance. I've also got some people that have quads that are a little bit more dominant over the glutes. So there may come a point where you've got to make like modifications to either foot placement or, how you're executing the movement. And then you may also not be able to go as heavy and still keep that engagement on the glutes without the quads taking over. So these are just some little things to consider when you're thinking about how much weight. In their particular instance, I'd rather them go lighter and do some of these other things that we're going to talk about rather than adding the weight, which now it's going to start engaging that muscle we're not looking to grow. So hopefully that makes sense.
Ashley has a question. Ashley Smith. Am I reading that correctly, Ann?
Yep, Ashley Smith.
Ashley Smith, unmute and ask. Do we want to ask questions now? Or you want to?
Yes, you can ask a question.
I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I raised my hand. My phone was dying and I just plugged it in. So
Okay.
I'm just listening.
Now the rule is you have to ask a question.
Now I have to ask a question. Okay.
You don't have to ask
I'm
a
messing with you.
Yeah. I am sure like I'm going to have a lot of questions. I'm like for sure taking notes. So I think that I probably fall in the category of like sometimes I go in and maybe I'm not working enough. And then sometimes I go in and I'm working too much. So.
And that's something you're going to learn, honestly. Like it comes with experience and it comes with time. And and I think that it's important, like I said, to like when you walk into the gym every day, it's a new day. It's a new day. You're starting fresh. You're going to see where your body is, how it's feeling, and really tuning in. A lot of times it's easy to like get into our music or get into a conversation. I mean, and really what we need to be doing is tuning into our body. So just making sure that, we're staying super present. And it's okay to course correct. If you realize on your first set you went too low, do more reps and then add more weight next step, and keep, figuring it out. And remember that each day is a new puzzle for you to sort out. It's not going to be the same when you go in and do that same workout the next time.
We were talking a little bit about that whole mental mindset coming into the gym. And what I will tell you, first of all, the first rule of going into the gym is check your ego at the door.
Mm-hmm.
The ego has no place in working out. Ego will get you into trouble, and it has gotten me into trouble many times. So I will just tell you, check your ego at the door, and then assess where you are that day. Make that own personal assessment. So let's say you're doing a heavy day. And I would love for a show of hands on this, but you can just do it internally. If you ever walked in a gym, it's going to be your heavy day. It's the gym when you're going to train a little extra heavy, and you pick up that first dumbbell or that first plate, and oh my God, it feels like it weighs about twice what it did or what it should weigh, right? So you've got to pay attention to that and recognize where you are that day. And so if you're at that place on that day when things are feeling heavy or you're feeling like you're not going to train as intense, then lower the weight, do more reps, up your intensity, adjust those other variables. So always remember the FIT principle, okay? FIT is an acronym. It stands for frequency, intensity, type, and time. Those are 4 variables that you can vary any day on the gym. How frequent you train a body part, how intense you train, adjusting the weight, the time that you train. You can train by the seconds that you train and not just the reps. So you could say, I'm going to do 30 seconds worth of reps. I'm just going to do as many reps as I can in 30 seconds and train that way instead of actually counting your reps. You can get a Tabata, app for your phone, and it'll tell you how often, you change your interval. Adjust yourself in that day based on how you're feeling.
So we talked a little bit about increased endurance to kind of jump into the second way. So that's longer workouts with more sets, more reps. A lot of you that I coach, and probably a lot of you that our other coaches coach, that are working on really building glutes, for example. A lot of times when I give people their first workouts, they're like, oh my God, these are so long. And so I'm working that endurance side rather than the heavy weight side, because in most of those situations, those are people I just only want to work glutes. So I'd rather them, again, do a lot of reps with a lower weight to make sure we're still getting fully fatigued with the muscle versus, doing more compound sort of workouts where you're going to hit the whole lower body. And, if we're looking to balance out the glutes versus the rest of the leg. So I'm using the number 2 way in that particular instance, but maybe that same particular person might have upper body workouts that are more geared towards, they're shorter and they're heavier weight. We're looking to build those certain areas. So that's why you would see your workouts look that way.
If you ever want to assess your fitness and how well you are, and you're having one of those days, 50 rep sets are a technique that you can use. And if you're wondering 50 reps, yes, 50 reps, 50 reps, and whatever it takes to get those 50 reps without quitting. So if you ever want to assess where you are and you want to give yourself a really interesting blood flow, when I say interesting, I mean, you will feel pump. It is a leg wobbler if you're doing legs or any other body part. It's really hard.
I mean, well, what's funny is you can do no weight.
That's true. You can do no weight for 50 reps.
Oh, even it's like anything else. If you stand and hold your arm straight out, this is so easy. Wait 5 minutes, wait 10 minutes, wait 15 minutes, and it's not going to be so easy anymore. So that's where we're talking about that endurance side. So it's just another way of hitting that.
Natasha knows, and I think Ann knows, that I have a military background. So I used to train officer candidates for years in the Army. And most of the things that we gave them to do other than push-ups were static exercises, one of which was the commander's chair, where you put your heels up against the wall and you squat down and you just hold it it's a squat of about 35 degrees and you just hold it with your arms extended. And I will tell you, the first 10 seconds, everybody's really strong at that point. 15 seconds gets a little harder. 30 seconds gets really hard. Minute, 2 minutes. So, those exercises, which guarantee you will feel the muscle contraction and the muscle burn if you do those types of things. So Jamie talked about isometrics, really effective way of doing things. Don't ever tell me that you need weights to train. You can train with bands, you can train with isometrics, you can train with body weight exercises, and all these
COVID taught us all that.
That's right. all these principles that we're talking about apply regardless. It's not about machines, it's not about free weights, it's about the principles of progressive overload.
Yes. So number 3 was increased tempo intensity. So you can go at a quicker pace. In other words, you could do more explosive types of movements. And somebody had asked about tempo in one of the questions. And I tend to like to do kind of a mixture of training methods. It's also going to depend on the advancement of the person who's training, how well they have mastered the motions. I would say you want to go slow and controlled until you're really, really good at it, because, obviously as you increase the pace and the intensity and the explosiveness of the movement, the better chance you have of causing injury. So you want to be really careful. So if you've got a bad knee, for an example, I would not be doing explosive movements on your lower body. If you've got a shoulder issue, I wouldn't be doing them. Like, you don't want to risk that. If there's no injuries and you're an advanced trainer and you want to integrate some explosive movements, then you certainly can. And there's definitely benefits to doing that. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that because I don't think a whole lot of us are doing a lot of explosive types of movements, but I did want to mention that. The other thing you can do to increase your progressive overload is decrease the amount of time between sets. And a lot of times people will ask me, because I don't put the time on the workouts that I give out, but for rest time, most of the time I don't, because really you should be going off of how you feel. So if you just did a really heavy set and you're still catching your breath a minute later, then wait 90 seconds to start. If you worked a smaller muscle, like our front delt, you're probably not going to be panting after a minute. You could probably get started again after 30 to 45 seconds. But again, it's going to depend on, how hard you worked in that prior set and, how you're feeling that day. But, in order to increase intensity, that is one thing you can do, is shorten the rest periods in between sets.
You can talk superset.
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that Greg and I had talked about earlier too, because, I think a lot of times people are looking for constant changes in their workouts. And it's kind of funny because I don't really ever change like my workout protocols, very, very rarely. Maybe I change the order based on who's on a machine or whatever. But, a lot of times people are like, oh, I've been doing this workout for 3 months. So you've done the same workout like 12 times. Your body is not adapted to that workout after 12 workouts over a 3-month period of time. You know what I'm saying? And especially if you're varying your weight, if you're varying the number of reps, if you're varying how much time you're resting between. So all of these are variables that you can, play with the amount based on how you're feeling that day. And that's why I really, even though as coaches, we're assigning workouts, like there's a big responsibility placed in your lap to really analyze each time you go in and work out that you're engaging the right muscle, that you're giving appropriate rest, all of those things. Those aren't things predetermined for you because we're not there with you every day. And these are variables that are going to change. If you don't have enough time to get through your workout, or if you're feeling really exhausted that day and going really heavy and everything is just not happening, it's okay to superset. It's okay to move a little bit faster with the pace of things. I know, like, especially with a lot of the glute workouts where we've got a lot of volume and people are like, oh my God, it's taking me 2 hours to get through this workout. You can speed it up by doing that, by supersetting. And now obviously you still want to exhaust the muscles. So what a lot of times I'll do is superset something that's not working the exact same muscle in the exact same way, so that way you're still kind of providing a little bit of rest in between.
So think quads and hams, think chest and back, think biceps and triceps, shoulders. You can train with everything because but you can superset any of those. You can giant set where you do 3 different movements back to back to back. And then, one of the other thing that you sparked in my head is we talk about your intensity. Think about the gym etiquette and the gym protocol and who you're training with. I used to train with a buddy of mine, and I loved that guy. And we would just sit at the gym and jaw jack. And I realized I was not getting the same kind of intensity in my workouts that I wanted. So I just started to train alone because that's what I need to do for my own intensity. And then I had another buddy, military buddy of mine, that trained as intense as I did. So it was a great match for me. But if you're training with a partner and they're not matching your intensity, just be mindful of that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying break up the relationship. I'm just saying, you're at the gym to train for you. You're not there to train for them. So get your workout in. It's working out is kind of a selfish endeavor. It's for your betterment. So if you need to break ties with somebody because their intensity isn't matching yours, then break ties.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean you could still go to the gym together.
That's right.
But you don't have to like stay at each exercise together. It might make more sense. Like the two of us don't typically train every exercise together, but we do go to the gym quite frequently together and encourage each other, cheer each other on, and maybe we stretch together or do certain things, but we don't do every single exercise identically because our goals aren't the same. So I think that kind of covers the majority of kind of the meat of what I wanted to present, and then we'll kind of jump into questions. And I did have some questions that a few people had provided, so I'll start with those, and then you guys can chime in.
With the audience question.
Okay, that's fine. Do you guys want to? Does anybody have a question they would like to start with?
And Ann and Natasha, are you guys moderating, or is it just come up on the line and ask?
We'll let someone in. Okay, Christine, you're up.
So I have two questions. One is I am very guilty about the warm up. I'm a busy OBGYN and I'm trying to get everything in. So I'm going to try to add that today. Starting Monday.
Hey, doctor, let's just say this. There is no try. There is only do.
Yeah.
Natasha, I'm surprised that Natasha and Ann didn't hold you accountable for that, but I will. So there is only do, and you've got to commit to it. If you do your warm-up correctly, it will enhance your workout, not detract from it. It's a mindset shift.
Yeah. Well, I still that old school that if Ann puts it on paper, I've got to do it. I'm just I understand we've had conversations about recovery, sleep, because I'm an OBGYN, hydration and nutrition. So I do my warm-ups. The second thing is every once in a while I have to split my workouts. Is it better to split them or superset them?
That would be a question I would ask Ann, since she knows what your specific goals are. If she wants you to have that rest between sets because you're needing to build a little bit more muscle, then she might rather you split them versus supersetting them. So Ann, do you want to? For
Christine, you have a lot of muscle mass. You are fine splitting up your workouts.
Supersetting.
No, I've been setting.
Yeah. Instead of splitting them up.
Okay.
Yeah. She was saying superset or split. If you have a lot of muscle, to me, I would superset them. If you're somebody who doesn't have enough muscle and we want you to have a little bit more rest so that you can push a little bit heavier on that next set, then I would say probably split the workouts. So hopefully that's kind of apply to everybody.
She can superset all day long. She's good.
And Dr. Brandy introduced a topic that we really need to make sure that everybody understands, which is you asked the question, what is better? Take better off of the table.
Mm-hmm.
There is no better, there is no best, there is no quicker, there is no faster. There is only what works for you. So everything is going to be tailored for you. And part of your journey on this is figuring out what works for you and what doesn't. What we're offering you is some guidelines to help you avoid the same pitfalls that we have fallen into, or that I have fallen into. I'll just own my own on that. So take better off the table. It's only what works for you. Make sense?
Yes, and I'm married to a military man as well, so we fight that one way. So I'm a very good rule follower. That's what got me through medicine. But I'm learning. Life is about adjustment, gray zones, perfection, not progression, not perfection. So
there you go. So you got it. Now live that.
Apply it.
I love it.
Thank you, guys.
I think Julie has a question.
Yeah, someone else. Julia.
Hi.
Hi, Julia.
So I have a quick question. So when I do my glute kickbacks, sometimes I feel it in my like knees.
Julia,
but
your
I
audio's
know, like
coming
when I
in a
go
little bit spotty.
lower, I feel like I'm not feeling it as much.
Your audio's cutting out a little.
There we go. Maybe if you
Oh,
cut your picture.
So I heard whenever I do, whenever you're
Kickbacks.
doing kickbacks, you're feeling it, and then you cut out a little.
Oh,
Oh no,
she left the meeting. She'll be back, and then if
Yeah, she's probably going to go out and come back in. Does anyone else have any questions? In the meantime,
well, I'll go ahead and answer one of these questions while you. Oh,
Wait,
Julia, are you back? Oh no, I think she's here, but we can't hear her.
yeah, your
Oh, she
audio.
is.
Oh,
can
what,
you
how
guys
about
hear
you
me now?
just put the question in the.
Oh, yeah, type
we
the
can hear
question in the chat box.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we can hear you now.
Oh, now we can hear you. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. So when I do kickbacks, it's like if I go a little bit heavier, I'll feel it in my knees, and then when I go lighter, I won't feel it in my glutes as much, and I will like now I know to go past the rep ranges that I wanted, but I'm not sure if I can do the ankles, the attachment at the ankles, or if I could do it higher, just whatever, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, when it comes to kickbacks, I think you have to find, and I think somebody had asked about that in my questions too. You have to find where it works best for you. So for me, I typically feel it best when I do them on the leg press machine, but I know for some people their leg press machines are really heavy and whatever, or doesn't fit their bodies right or whatever. So for me, that's where it's best. I feel like I can push a lot heavier and a lot harder without having to worry about, the cable pulling me one direction or the other. So I really like doing that. But if you do have to use the ankle strap and do that kickback, it's, maybe finding an angle that's going to work better for you. I like to, do like kind of kneeling or, all fours on a bench, to kind of give myself a little bit more sturdiness. I don't know. But you can trying different ways. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, it could just be that you have to go with a little bit lower weight and then do more reps.
And Julia, that what I would add is that if you're feeling it in your knees, don't do that. Okay. So we've established that. The other things that you can change, what Jamie talked about, 100%, and then focus on what I would focus on is doing it at a lower weight where you contract. Are you contracting at the end of each repetition?
Not as much as I should.
Okay,
Yeah.
so there you go. And we don't should on ourselves because it gets really messy. So don't should. When you get to that end of the contraction where you're fully contracted in that glute, just squeeze. What Jamie was talking about with put like an acorn in your buttocks and you're trying to. That's all you get to eat all day, Julia. Is that acorn? And if you don't crack that with your butt cheeks, then you just don't get to eat. So put that in your mindset, and then you're only doing one cheek at a time, right? On kickbacks.
All the people that have their kids listening, they're going to be like,
they're all right. They're all right. It's family friendly. Kids eat nuts too, cracked by their parents' butt cheeks. So when you're kicking back, make sure you're feeling that contraction. Jamie told you I was going to be fun. The other thing that you can vary to is the time between sets. So cut down that time between sets. That's yet another variable you can introduce to get that contraction and that feeling of the work on the muscle.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and somebody had asked for the video of doing the leg press on the kickbacks on the leg press machine.
I'm posting it right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was going to ask if one of you guys would post it for me. So I think I'm in the video of the one that we have.
It's like the notorious one that everybody's like, this is so hard. It's a very hard one. It's a good one.
It's hard.
It's hard and it works. And
Yeah.
the thing I will tell you with that particular movement, whenever you guys watch the video, if you haven't done it and you're going to go do it in the gym, is most of those machines are set that it's not going to fall on you and crush you. So I feel like what happens is people will typically, depending on your gym and your machine, it's usually like 35, 45 pounds without weight. So don't put weight on it. Just leave it like it is. And then you're going to have it racked. You're going to turn around. You're going to kick it up and you're going to fill it and it's going to feel heavy. Don't freak out, right? and go, oh, I can't do it. I feel like that's what people do. And I used to be in the gym with people. I'm like, okay, look, I'm gonna stand with you and let it all the way down. It's not going to crush you because there's bumpers that keep it from crushing you. So it's like, you feel like, oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to do it. Just let it down and see if you can, see if you can do one or two and then work up. You'll surprise yourself how quickly your strength will grow and how much you'll be able to, do them. Because even when I lifted, I'm like, oh my God, this is heavy. And then I'll get all the reps in. You don't need to go all the way down though and stop before it starts to strain your knee. So you don't need to really go past like 90 degrees, maybe just a little below. So just pay attention to that. If it starts to kind of strain your knee, then just keep it in the upper range. And then like Greg was saying, squeeze the glute at the top when you push, do the isometric squeeze and then let it back down.
How are we doing on time?
We're good. We've got about 10 minutes left. Mariah,
Question.
you are up. So unmute yourself and fire away.
And then after Mariah, Stephanie typed out a question.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, awesome. Hi, this is my first time joining, and I have to say the nut in the butt cheek was the best for me. I loved it. So keep it coming. No, seriously, I cracked up, and my kids looking at me like I'm crazy.
Acting nuts. Wow, well done.
Yeah, no pun
I see you.
intended. Yeah, you see? Yes. Okay, so my question is, I'm very trap dominant. So I have issues with engaging my delts, lateral raises, all that fun stuff. And I will say, since joining with you, Jamie, and doing the lateral raises with like pouring the milk, like that was a huge game changer for me. But sometimes I still feel, and maybe it's just mental, because I've literally just have always had engagement issues when it came to like my traps and delts. But how can I, what can I do better to avoid and really ensure that I'm not engaging my traps and it's, just solely all in the arms?
Great question. I love this question because I do think this is something so many people are challenged with. And I know that it's something I struggled early on, and, our traps, that's a much bigger muscle than when we're working our delts. They're going to want to take over if you go too heavy, first and foremost. So I'd rather you go lighter and make sure you're engaging the muscle in the correct way. Because like I was saying with the front delt, this is a really small muscle when you think about it. The other thing you can do is, so if I'm doing a front raise, you can think about pushing forward instead of up. No matter what you're doing, you never want to shrug, because as soon as you shrug, that's all traps. So always think about keeping the neck long, shoulders pressed back and down. And then if I'm going to do a front raise, I'm actually pushing forward. And if you raise your arm out and you bring it back, you're not gonna feel your front delt that engaged. Push it forward, put your hand on your front delt and push forward. You'll feel your front delt engage.
Oh yeah, I totally just did that right now. I just lifted and shifted my delt back, and I really did feel that difference.
Isn't that amazing? So
yeah,
you really go a little bit lighter and then just make sure you're really getting it there. And you don't need to go past 9 degrees. So the same is going to apply if I go with a lateral raise. I'm gonna think about kind of pushing away from the joint a little bit, and you're gonna feel that mid and this, and then the rear delt. I love the rear delt machine because I feel like you can really think about pushing everything back and down and really kind of coming here. But whether you're doing face pulls or however you're doing your delt,
right,
it's just a matter of really pushing everything back and down, not going too heavy. I mean, you think about this is a little tiny muscle right here. So just going much lighter with the weight and making sure that you're just engaging that one little particular area and not letting all the traps and everything that our backs are so strong and they want to take over as soon as things get hard.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, that's a huge game changer for me. And then again, in the very beginning of this meeting, you guys said you don't have to go in with the mentality that you need a PR every time. And I was like, oh wow, I guess I really don't. When I don't hit PRs, I'm like, I suck today, and that's very much far from the case. And it's nice to hear that, because sometimes we forget. So yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wouldn't expect a PR any sooner than 2 to 4 weeks after you hit a PR. And even then, it should still be small increments. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be weight. It could be you got an extra rep. You know what I mean? But again, like, you shouldn't expect it every single time you go in and do that workout. You know, every 2 to 3 to maybe 4 weeks, if you're feeling really strong that day, okay, let me see if I can get a little bit more weight or a little bit more reps, or you may not even realize you're doing it. You may go in the gym one day and you may be resting less time between sets. Maybe you're in more of a hurry, or you had a little extra caffeine that day. and you don't realize you're not as strong. Well, maybe you're just not resting as long.
That's so true. Thank you so much. This is so helpful. Thank you.
I'll go so far as to tell you I don't believe in PRs at all.
Okay, great.
And I think you should train based on how you feel and push yourself as hard as you were able to that day.
Yeah,
that goes with that's being present. That goes with the check your ego at the door. And the other thing I'll tell you is on your traps, everything Jamie said is 100% correct. And consider isolation exercises if you find your trap. So single arm, whenever you can isolate, single arm is a great way to kind of take out those supporting muscle groups. And the third thing I'll tell you, and in my advocacy for myofascial release, is roll that back and those upper shoulders, because oftentimes the reason your traps are taking over is because you have adhesions back there, and that's where most people carry their tension.
Yes.
So if you are not rolling, and I mean aggressively rolling, so I am not a foam roller person, I am a rumble roller person, the one with the little spikes on it, because those get in there and dig it out. But I would bet you if you're trap dominant, is where you carry your tension, and it's probably where you're carrying a lot of adhesions, which is why you're working that more than the other.
And another thing I found that was really good for what Greg's saying, because sometimes I have a hard time with the roller getting into some of those areas, is what you can do is get the lacrosse ball and put it in a sock so that you can control it. So you've got the lacrosse ball and it's hanging in a long sock over your shoulder, and then go against the wall. And that really helped me. I mean, you can lay on the ground, but you know, I find that really great to like find that spot and get in there. Sometimes with the roller, it's kind of hard for me to get into my traps. So the lacrosse ball is amazing. And when I found doing the sock, that was a game changer, because now I can kind of control where it's going without dropping it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm definitely going to try that, because I'm a stressed mama. I guess that's why I'm like huge.
We got adults and we're still stressed. So.
Yeah, I know. Okay, awesome. I'm definitely going to try all those things. Thank you. And I feel better mentally now that you guys are just kind of saying, like, check the ego. You don't need PR. So it feels really good to hear all that. So thank you.
Awesome.
At the end of the day, it's how you look. Nobody's judging you on stage by how many PRs.
True.
And they're, by the way, they don't weigh you when you go onto stage either. So they're only looking at how you look, right? So our goals are, let's keep the outcome the focus here.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yes. What was the question that you were?
No, she asked. So Anne is on stage.
No.
Probably. Oh,
no. Tasha was saying there was another question.
Oh, there's a written question.
Yeah. So Stephanie, because she said she couldn't talk, she wrote, if you have an exercise of 10 sets where you're supposed to fail on rep 8, how are you supposed to feel on the first set? If you were at full failure, how do you make it through all 10 sets?
Well, yeah, if you, that doesn't work. If you fail at 8, then you're not going to get to 10 because you failed. So,
which is okay.
I mean, I would say you want to be super challenged by 8, and then maybe you're failing by 10 is what it sounds like. Start to fail by 8 and then be fully failing by 10.
I think the question is, it was 10 sets.
Yeah, she said you're doing 10 sets. So, and she's asking, how are you supposed to feel on the first set?
Well, are you and the question, are you raising your weight each set, or are you doing the same weight for 10 sets?
Right.
Yeah. So typically when I'm doing more like a high number of sets, the weight's either staying the same or going down. So that's how you get through the sets is you want to start, assuming you've warmed up and you've done all of that and you're starting your first working set, that one should be challenging. And you may even be able to go up for a couple sets, depending on kind of what weight you chose and how strong you're feeling that day. But there's probably going to be a point where then you've got to start to decrease, kind of like a drop set, but you're doing it not within the same set because you're doing so many. You may have to start to tear down the weight as the muscle gets exhausted.
If you're doing the 4-set routine, which is I think most things are 4 sets per exercise. The first set should be a challenging set, but it shouldn't exhaust you. Sets 2 and 3 should be the really working set, and set 4 would be something that either you peak at, depending on where you are in the exercise routine, or you're coming down at, just to put some blood into that muscle for the work that you did in sets 2 and 3. So the rep ranges can change, by the way, as you're doing 4 sets or 10 sets. The rep ranges can change, and the weight can change. So this gets into that concept that we talked about, the time and the intensity.
When you really get to failure, so say in this particular instance, you really got to failure and you can't even do any weight, then you just do it without weight.
There you go.
Body weight, you know what I mean? Like that may be something you have to do as you're building up to being able to do more intensity. And then, maybe let the coach know if it's too much for you in general, then you may have to let your coach know, and maybe they need to start you with 6 sets instead of 10.
If you're doing squats, for example, just to illustrate how this is, so you're doing squats with the 25 on each side, okay, in the Smith machine, and you get to 8 reps and you're done, and you're supposed to do 12. There's no rule in the bodybuilding world that says you can't rack that weight, step off the bar, and do 4 air squats all the way down, just to get that 12 reps, and if that's what's important to you. But again, it's really more the work in the muscle that it should be the priority here. But again, this is about being creative and checking that ego. And man, nobody cares whether you do 12 or 8 on the bar and you do 4 air squats afterwards. Nobody cares. Nobody's looking at that.
Yeah, if you fully exhausted the muscle, and I know I get you guys want to fall, like, because I do too. Like if somebody gives me a plan, they told me to do 8, to do 10, I don't want to stop at 8, so I probably would do what he said, do the air squats, just because I'm like, I did those last ones, But in reality, I probably would have been just fine stopping at the 8, because I grabbed enough weight to where it just, again, it's progressive overload, and it's how is that load happening? Is it happening with the number of reps, happen with the weight, happen with all those things we just named? In this particular case, where the example Greg gave, the weight was such that the reps didn't need to be as high. Maybe next set, I need to bring the weight down so that I can get the reps that my coach wanted me to get. If that makes sense. Doesn't anybody else have a question right now?
Yeah. Jamie, I just wanted to go back really quick when people were talking about the PR and PR thing. And for me, I have a lot of first-time competitors, and they get really, I almost feel like down on themselves or hung up on, oh, I didn't hit any PRs this week and I didn't hit any PRs. And they're not understanding that calories are continuing to go down as you're in prep. So talking about the necessary energy needed to hit those PRs, and I don't, just like, I guess that managing expectations and really being, having some grace with yourself and realizing that as food goes down, you don't have the same fuel sources that you did previously. You're not going to be hitting PRs when your calories are going down and your cardio is going up.
Absolutely.
If you congratulations, but it doesn't work out for most of us.
Yeah. Well, and guess what? Your weight has no idea. I mean, your muscle has no idea how much weight you're lifting.
Right.
Just like the judges have no idea how much you weigh on stage. It doesn't matter. If you're fully challenging that muscle, and like Anna's saying, like as you get closer to show, you may have to drop the weight and just do a few extra reps if you need to. You know what I mean? But it is true. You're not going to be as strong when you're at 10% body fat as you're going to be at 20% body fat. Sorry, guys.
1,200 calories versus 2,200 calories.
They all kind of go hand in hand. So
yeah.
100%, that's totally correct.
So Dave wrote in this question is that he wears a heart rate monitor, and he feel like the muscle groups do not elevate his heart rate. Is heart rate not a good indicator of intensity? No. Not always.
No. Yeah. So I would only. Sorry, babe. You're gonna answer.
No, I'll just say this: if you want to get your heart rate up, then increase your intensity by decreasing the amount of time between sets, or supersetting, or giant setting. If you want to get that heart rate up, I mean, it's that same principle of HIIT. So go ahead.
But let's talk about what the goal is. The goal is what's important. So if your goal is to build muscle, then no, I would not say the heart rate is going to be as important. Your heart rate's gonna of course go up when you do big compound movements. Like when I do squats, my heart rate goes up. I'm hot. But if I'm doing a shoulder exercise or even a chest work exercise, my heart rate will come up a little bit, but not a whole lot. Heart rate, some is dependent on your genetics, on your health marker, just all these different things. So if your goal is just fat loss and you're not worried about building muscle, then you may want a superset or one of the things, some of you guys may have metabolic workouts in your protocol, and a metabolic workout is designed to keep your heart rate up the whole time. So basically what we do with those is we'll have you do a cardio insert. So let's say you're doing something like mountain climbers or burpees or something that's going to shoot that heart rate up. And then rather than rest, we'll throw in a bicep curl or a shoulder movement or something that's going to let the heart rate come back down. And then we'll throw another cardio insert. So if the goal is just pure fat loss, we might do something like that. But if your goal is to build muscle, you're typically not going to get that heart rate up while you're doing your weight training as much. You're going to do a set, you're going to wait a minute till you recover, you're going to do another set. So it's going to kind of stay, pretty level.
So Dave, the takeaway there and the takeaway for everybody is, why are you training? Weight, right? Why am I training? And if you're training to build a muscle, then heart rate's going to be way less important. If you're training to condition the muscle, then heart rate is a factor. So just get your why straight on that part.
Yeah. And if your goal is to both, then you're going to not get the heart rate up as much while you're weight training, and you'll be adding in more cardio.
Right.
So, and that'll give you the opportunity to get your heart rate up. I'll answer some of these questions, and if somebody else has one, then they can just raise a hand. But I just wanted to get to some of these that someone asked about pre-workout supplements, whether or not they're worthwhile and what I recommend. And that, of course, always the answer to every question is it depends. It depends on what your goals are and that kind of thing. But I'll give some examples. One of the things that, we've done most of us have done for many years, pre or intra or post workout or all of the above is BCAAs. Since, more recent, we've realized there's studies that have come out that show that if you're really eating enough protein, you don't really need BCAAs. I will say if I'm training fasted, which I prefer not to do, but there are times where that's just how you got to get it in. Or if I know I didn't get enough protein prior to the workout, then I would have some BCAAs, either pre or intra workout. So that would be that. Otherwise, I don't do them. Everything you take is something more for your kidney and your liver to process. So if you don't need it, don't take it. Just toss it, right? The other big thing with pre-workouts I wanted to bring up is stimulant versus non-stimulant. If you are somebody who is affected strongly by caffeine and it's going to affect your sleep, do not take a stimulant pre-workout, especially if it's, past, like if I do it, I can do it prior to noon. If I take it afternoon, I'm not going to sleep as well. Even if I'm able to fall asleep, I don't get into those deeper levels of sleep. And recovery is as important, if not more important, than the workout itself. So just skip it. Don't do it.
You don't grow when you're working out.
Right. So that's one of the things I would really kind of push away from. I know there are some people that aren't affected as much by caffeine. It's usually because they drink too much caffeine, which is a whole nother issue, which I would suggest maybe tapering off. I do have a cup of coffee in the morning, and that's my caffeine for the day, period. And so if I do have a little bit of, I'll usually do like a half a scoop of a pre-workout, which one I will typically use Legion's pre-workout. I like their products. I feel like they're pretty clean for the most part. So that's that. There are some non-stimulant pre-workouts that are kind of more like pump products. Are they helpful? Maybe slightly. I don't think they're going to make a huge difference. Somebody had asked about whether it's important to get a pump when you're in the gym, and what it is. It's, and it's basically the muscle that's filling into the blood filling into the muscle and making it fuller and harder and all of that. There are some benefits to that, but at the same time, it's not, if you're not getting as much of a pump, that doesn't mean you're not growing. You're still growing. You're still micro tearing your muscle that's recovering and building muscle and all of that. So creatine is in a lot of the post workouts and some pre-workouts. I kind of have two different sides of that. I've seen kidney numbers not be as good because of creatine. So, there's some benefits to it, but there's also some potential downfalls. And certainly if you have any kidney issues, any liver issues, you've ever had kidney stones before, then that's a big fat no to the creatine. If you haven't had any of those and you want to try it, you can see how it works for you, but I wouldn't say it's 100% necessary. The other big one that's in the pre-workouts and post-workouts is beta alanine, and that's the thing that makes you tingly. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's working because I'm tingly. No, if you are looking for beta alanine to be effective, you need, the studies have shown it's incredibly effective when taken in 4 grams spread out evenly throughout the day. That's a lot. And I've taken that much before and I felt like I was on fire. But a lot of companies are putting it in their pre-workouts or their post-workouts. So you feel like something's happening, but it's not enough to actually like give you the results that it's promising. So I don't know, for me with the supplements, I just say be a little bit careful, be a little bit wary, and if you have questions about it, ask your coach if there's something you're thinking about trying or whatever, but for the most part, stick to what you need, what's working for you is what I'd say on that one. What other questions came up? How important is tempo? I think we kind of covered that. Tips on feeling failure. I had gotten a question about deadlifts. One of the things I did want to bring up with deadlifts is, I really encourage people to wear wrist wraps because you're always going to, this is never going to be as strong as your glutes and hamstrings. So you're not going to be able to really fully exhaust, the areas intended. And same with lat pull downs and things like that. I really encourage people to wear wrist wraps. Just make sure that they're ones that don't hurt or don't pull on your wrist. I wear the old school ones, but I know a lot of people like what's the one you want?
VersaGrip.
The VersaGrips.
They make the hooks, whatever works for you.
Yeah, wear what works for you. To fully exhaust the bigger muscles, your grip's going to give out before the muscle's going to give out. So that was something I wanted to mention. You can always change range of motion. If you're not, I know a lot of people know this. If you're doing this is easiest to show you, a bicep curl. If you're coming all the way to the top, you're resting. If you're going all the way to the bottom, you're resting. So range of motion, you want to make sure you're keeping it. You want to keep that muscle engaged throughout the entire range of motion. And that goes for everything. I think Greg had mentioned earlier too, like, if you get really tired, you can even shorten your range of motion or do partial reps, that kind of thing too. So I did want to bring that up. And then listening to your body. If you've got any kind of injury and something hurts, stop. Don't do it. If you don't have an injury and something hurts, stop. It's one thing for the muscle to burn and you're working it, but I'm talking about a different kind of pain where you feel like, this doesn't feel right. Don't do it. Everybody's body's different. You may have to adjust the range of motion on something or the weight, or there may be an exercise that just doesn't work for your body. That's okay. There's many, many ways to, make things work. If something is hurting, stop. Was there a question?
I don't know. I was just checking. Oh, we did get a clarification. There is no Dave on the call. There is a Kimberly from Alaska who is on Dave's chat line asking the question. So
good.
Anyway,
Okay. Good.
Hi, Kimberly.
Awesome.
I think.
What else? Somebody asked about tips for hyperextension for glutes.
I think we talked about that with the mind-muscle connection being the most important thing.
Oh, also some tips if we don't have a hyperextension machine. I usually use a balance ball and put my feet up against the wall to help me not fall. And then I put my body on the balance ball is how I do it. But there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You could even do like good mornings in place of it. That's going to be pretty similar. Different types of kickbacks. We talked about kickbacks. Somebody had asked about the waist trainer that I recommend. I think that's another one of those things where you kind of got to figure out what you like the best. I know a lot of people are really liking the Slim Tum brand. I don't know if either of you guys have any other feedback that you wanted to give Natasha or Ann.
Those are both good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the Slim Tum.
Yeah. And again, with the waist trainer, it shouldn't be hurting you. If it's hurting you, then it's too tight. It really should be snug. And the idea is that it's making you pull your own waist in tight. You're not supposed to be sitting there like relaxed in it and it's just like squishing your insides. You know, I usually tell people wear it when you're up and about, like when you're sitting a lot, it's not good. It's just gonna cause discomfort. But I mean, if you're cleaning your house, prepping your meals, like up and about, you know, that's a good time to wear it. But make sure it's not digging in you. Oh, the other thing I recommend is you wear something underneath it so it does not cause any skin irritation. What I used to wear is I would go like to Target and get the undergarments that don't have seams in them or anything, that like kind of compression kind of garments, and wear that underneath, and it just protects your skin and you can wash it. So if you get sweaty or whatever, you know, it's just better. How are we on time?
We're a little over. We're about time to wrap it up.
Covered everything, babe.
Okay. All right. I mean, I did have one more question that I was going to answer, and somebody had just asked about what labs they should get pre-workout, pre-season, before, during, after. And again, it's kind of, if somebody comes to me and they're in perfect health and nothing's wrong and everything's like, I'm not necessarily going to make them go get lab work. So I don't think that everybody just needs to always get lab work necessarily. If you're healthy and everything's going well and there's no reason to think that there's something wrong. If there's something that does go wrong, then you want to test for that specific whatever issue is going on. But just kind of in general, what we typically do when we're figuring out if there's something going on, full thyroid panel, a CBC, metabolic panel, lipids. We look at all the sex hormones, so testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, DHEA. We also look at typically hemoglobin A1C, so we want to see kind of how your blood sugars looked over the long term. IGF-1, vitamin D, which I see a lot of times people have low vitamin D. And if you're not taking vitamin D, I would definitely recommend. Most of us aren't in the sun like we used to be. So, and a lot of people used to get their vitamin D from milk because it was fortified, and most of us don't drink milk anymore. So if you're not supplementing, I would say 5,000 IUs of D3 is a good idea. But I've even seen people with low vitamin D that have been taking it consistently. So that's just, if energy levels are low, that's something that's good to look at. Same with iron. So I think that kind of covers it, you know, but again, it's not like everybody needs to get a whole bunch of lab work done. But if there's something of concerning going on, then those are the typical panels that we run. That's it.
Perfect. Thank you, Mama Bear and Papa Bear. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
Awesome coverage. So that kind of wraps up our call for tonight. As always, I did record it, so I will get it posted in both places in the next day. And then just a heads up, our next call, we had 2 this month, so our next one's coming quick. Our next one is actually next Sunday, May 1st, and our topic is Masters to Pro. So you'll be hearing basically all of our stories, myself and Natasha and Corinne, our stories of what that looks like at the Masters level, and how to stay motivated to keep fighting for that pro card even at our lovely age. Because we're platinum. We deserve our pro cards too.
Yes. Well, and hopefully there'll be a Masters Olympia coming down the line, because that is what's being talked about. So yeah, so we're pretty excited about that. We've been pushing for that for a long time. So
yeah,
they're saying maybe 2023. So we're very hopeful.
Yeah, that's a super, super exciting thing coming our way. So we are being acknowledged, ladies, and we're excited about it. So yeah, join us next Sunday for our Masters to Pro conversation on the 1st. I'll get this video posted either probably tomorrow. And thank you all so much for coming. We appreciate having you.
Bye, guys. Love you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. I can't hear you. You're muted.
Let me take me off of.
Now let me stop the recording. And stop.